Let's get some insight now on D-Day commemorations from Michael Desch. He's a professor and director of International Security Center at the University of Notre Dame and joins me from Indiana. Professor, thanks for being with us. D-Day landing was, of course, one of the greatest symbols of transatlantic cooperation ever seen. How would you characterize that transatlantic alliance today?
Well, the transatlantic alliance of World War II, which, by the way, also included the Soviet Union, was very much a function of World War II and the threat from Nazi Germany. So the situation couldn't be more different today in that the tensions in the transatlantic alliance are in large part a function of the end of the Cold War.
Despite a lot of handshakes and smiles that we have seen with President Trump mingling with other world leaders, U.S. allies, some might argue it is President Trump who has undermined that alliance.
Well, I mean, his diplomacy has been ham-handed at best, but with the end of the Cold War, there are deeper structural changes that are pushing the two sides of the Atlantic further away. So I think even absent President Trump, the Atlantic alliance of today would be nothing like the Grand Alliance of the Second World War. Just think about the friction between the second Bush administration and Europe over the Iraq War in 2003.
D-Day, of course, was the biggest naval operation in military history. What does this day mean for the surviving heroes, for the veterans?
Well, there are fewer and fewer veterans left. It's, interesting, the individuals the president featured on the stage behind him at the cemetery at Omaha Beach were in their mid to late 90s. So this is probably the last major commemoration that we're going to see living survivors of. So it's poignant in that respect. Our direct connection with this very important historical event is going to be ended very soon.
Important historical event indeed. Some might even argue it was a turning point, but Russia's foreign ministry says D-Day did not play a decisive role in ending World War II, and that the Allied war effort should not be exaggerated. Your reaction to those comments?
Yeah, and he's absolutely right. D-Day was an impressive military operation. There's no doubt about it. But the truth of the matter is that 85% of the Nazi Wehrmacht was engaged with the Soviet Union in the Eastern Front, and the war in Europe was won largely on the Eastern Front. Now, the United States played a significant role in supporting the Soviets through Lend-Lease and other material support, but I can understand why the Soviets and the Russians are less nostalgic about June 1944 than they are about May 1945, and history is on their side.
Russian President Putin not invited to this year's ceremonies. He was invited 5 years ago. Should he have been there?
I think as a diplomatic move, it would have made good sense. But again, D-Day is an American, a British, a French, a Canadian event. And whether the Russians come or not, for them, the memory of World War II is tied to some very different battles. The Battle of Stalingrad, Kursk, the Battle of Berlin. So, in a way, they wouldn't be expected to be at Normandy, for every anniversary.
Professor Michael Desch, thank you.